My name is Nadira and it's an Adelican. I came to Canada when I was 9 years old and I live in the Atlantic region. When I first came to Canada, I was nervous because my family and I arrived at the end of the school year, so everyone already knew each other, they knew all the work, and I found it a little difficult at first to get along with everybody, but my teacher introduced me to two girls that became my best friends now today. In Nigeria, we always wore a uniform to everywhere. We had to get up early, iron our uniform, we had a tie, but when we got here, everyone was a bit more freely dressed. Everyone, they wore shorts in the winter, and I found it really confusing because it was really hot in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we had a lot of homework, but when I got here, there was not as much. Everything we needed to learn, we learned it in school. In Nigeria, you ate lunch in your classrooms. When it was done, you could go outside, play with your friends. But in Canada, you eat in the cafeteria with a big group. There's a cafeteria that you can buy lunch from. And I feel like the cafeteria here was a bit scary. It was very loud. Unlike in Nigeria, you sat at your desk, you ate quietly. But it was loud, everybody was talking. There was a lot of food being shared, and I found it a little difficult to figure out where to sit, who to talk to. And in Canada, no one really knew when it was your birthday, except maybe in my old school, in middle school, they would announce it on the announcements that happy birthday to Nadira. But in Nigeria, you had a big birthday party in your class, everyone was your friend, you brought packs, party packs for everybody, you had a huge birthday party at school. We didn't really have much after-school activities in Nigeria, but in Canada there was a huge variety. There was basketball, volleyball, badminton. You could join chess club if you wanted. The most we had in Nigeria was spelling bees. We moved through things a bit more quickly in Nigeria. When I got here, people were learning multiplications, but I already learned that when I was in grade 1 in Nigeria. In Canada, people work in groups more, but in Nigeria, everything was at your desk by yourself. You had to figure out the question. If you had a question, you could ask for help, but you couldn't ask other students. They would give us a question in the book, and we had to look through it and find the question there. But in Canada, there was iPads that you could search the answer up on, and things were just easier. They would prefer if you asked other students for help first. Someone who is strict but still cares about you, someone who follows the rules, someone who's understanding. There was often, if a single student got in trouble in Nigeria, everyone got in trouble. That's why they had people write names of the people who made noise. And one of the punishments we had was you would write on the board. There was something called sewing machine that you go up and down and then your legs hurt. So people were often scared, so we'd all comport ourselves just to avoid that. They prefer to keep quiet and not disagree with the teacher. In my home country, bullying and conflicts they would prefer it if the student adjusted themselves, because a motto we have is that if you need to be independent, you need to get by on your own. So if the issue really escalated, then they would involve the principal and stuff, but most of the time, conflicts were by ourselves. If there was bullying or there was some roughhousing or something, often, if it got too violent and too physical, the teachers would get involved, but if it was name calling and stuff like that, students would be asked to fix it on their own. I arrived at the end of the year, so it was a bit difficult for me, but as long as you put yourself out there, everything should be okay. There was always a group that you can fit in, someone that likes the same things as you in Canada. Everything seems to be going great, but when I first arrived, there was a language barrier. I was put in a French immersion in grade 3, so I couldn't understand most of what the teacher was saying. The language barrier is a big one. Often they explain things, they say things I don't really understand what they mean, because teachers in Nigeria, they say it differently, they explain it differently. When they say go search up on the iPads, I don't really get what they meant, because do we have iPads? Or there was a huge issue of communicating with people. I found it really difficult because in Nigeria everything was really isolated, it was independent, so I found it difficult to get along with groups and stuff. I wish they knew that despite where we came from and the hardships we found, we were able to fit in and blend in more easily. We can adjust to our surroundings, and they shouldn't treat us any differently than they do the other students. Thank you very much for taking the time to learn about our culture and to understand where we came from.